order at 7 o'clock.
I heard the chimes.
You heard the chimes. You want to stand for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any public comment? I don't think so. Could we review the minutes of the December 11th meeting?
Yeah, I move to accept the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second? Any vote to accept? Aye.
Yep.
I abstain.
Abstain. Yep. All right, new business, Marlene, want to take us through that?
Just let me look straight, some more.
Thank you.
There's the whole packet. You want to pass that to Tony?
Thank you. For you.
So this is a trip that Maureen DeSorbo and Matt Swanson are planning. I'll give you a chance to read the description of activities, but it sounds like a lovely trip where they will start out in Paris. They will see the sites in Paris, including, hi Rhonda, how are you? Good. They'll see what's being worked on at Notre Dame, the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, etc. They have a trip to Versailles planned. And then they will go to Mount Saint Michel Abbey, and they make their way over to, I believe I saw that Normandy was here.
Yeah.
And then the course isn't, are history courses, but also the history of pop culture that Matt Swanson runs. So that's where they'll kind of tie in some of the Walt Disney Studios themes on culture and pop culture. So that'll be a nice way to end it. I've included in here is the cost per student, which is estimated at $3,500. They like to start getting the wheels in motion on these trips so that kids have enough time to, save their money over the summer or with their summer jobs, babysitting, et cetera, et cetera. If you go past the application and you go to the first page of Destinations Unlimited, there's a little bit about the company that is providing the trip. So this company specializes in educational tours. We always make sure that parents are well aware of the trip insurance. We ran into that when
Yeah,
COVID hit. So we take pains to make sure that they understand that. There's a little bit about Destinations Unlimited. And then they talk about some of the destinations and student experiences.
So is this instead of EF, who do they usually use?
There's a couple that they usually use. Destinations Unlimited didn't really hit me as one that has been in common in the past.
Yeah.
So that's something that we can certainly ask about. But I know that Maureen and Mary felt comfortable with this when they looked at it. I saw some of the email exchanges back and forth to, please include these links, and they wanted to do a little bit more research before they sent it our way.
I was thinking about that because the 3,500 is really reasonable for a trip.
Yeah.
Wish I could go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
And again, they're looking to bring about 14 to 20 students.
is this the same, I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this the same trip to France where, because my daughter went a few years ago, they also stopped by Poland to see the camps?
Oh,
Or is this,
that's not mentioned in here.
Yeah.
It sounds like that might have been a different.
maybe it was a different one? Because I don't remember the, I remember the Disney, Normandy, yeah, but there was a whole, another stop in Poland, and,
Oh, wow.
no, Austria. There was somewhere around there,
Yeah.
but this is still a cool
Did
trip.
your daughter like it?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, did they both go?
Oh, I'm sorry, her
Okay.
class loved it.
Oh,
My
got it,
other
got it,
daughter
got it.
loved
I was like, oh, wow, they got to go together?
it.
Like,
Yeah, but I
that's
guess I couldn't
even-
get out of the house, she didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
But it was well run, different company.
So certainly, if you're ready and feel comfortable moving it to the full board tonight, you can do that. We'll have to hold on anyway. We'll have at least one more curriculum committee meeting in between if you wanted to ask more questions, because I understand that, certainly I haven't planned the trip. If you had more detailed questions, we could hold on, or, it's really up to you.
I'm ready to go with it, so.
I just can wait and ask more questions.
You have more questions?
Well, with the people, we would be talking to the
I could get any
Presenters
of
or-
those, I could get any of those answers for you,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to wait anyway.
Yeah, I think we wanted to wait till the calendar committee met
To approve it for the full board.
for full board, okay?
Right,
Okay,
right.
so it's time.
Do you want to wait? Okay.
Okay, so you want to table it?
Yes, please.
Not a problem, not a problem. Okay.
I think in the meantime, Ken, if you have any questions, you might want to
Yeah.
forward them to Marlene, so whomever has to answer them will have those answers ready for us the next time.
So I tabled this until the February curriculum committee or until the calendar committee meets.
Want to give us your update?
Yeah, so just a couple of things that have been happening that I wanted to keep you apprised of. The first is that we met with the administrators, or I should say, one principal from each building, to talk about a new universal screener for reading. We currently use what was the SRI, or the Scholastic Reading Inventory, and that is being phased out. So we must find something before next year. We're currently using this K through 12 at the high school, mostly in 9th grade, although we are using it where we need to in 10th, 11th, and 12th. So kind of in a specialty, sort of way for kids who are still tracking their growth with reading. But we phase it out in 9th and 10th. So that committee met last week. We're meeting again next week with a rep from a company called Renaissance that has the STAR assessment. And then a week or so following that, we'll be meeting with someone who's a rep for NWEA math testing, and we'll be looking at others. The problem that we're running into is that we just want one small screener to look at growth, and all of these companies are now packaged with, all kinds of progress monitoring and curriculum and intervention plans, and we feel that we are good with the rest of that. Our teachers know how to do that. We just want this one universal screener. And so teasing that out and finding something, it's kind of like going to the grocery store and we just want to buy, one or two ingredients, and they're trying to sell us the meal kit. So that's sort of where we're at with that, but those are some.
So you haven't used STAR at all here,
We have not.
or NWEA?
No. Historically, it's not been used in this district, so we've got our work cut out for us to see what will fit.
For what it's worth, I'm going to the NSBA conference later this month. If you give me a little write-up of what you're looking for, I'm happy to ask around.
Which conference are you going to, Tony?
The National School Board Association in
Oh,
Washington.
okay, yeah,
Just
yeah.
gotta be, we're not the first ones to do it.
no,
I can ask.
yeah, thank you, I appreciate that, appreciate that.
We actually, one of the districts I consult in, we just moved away from STAR.
Tell me why, that'll be important. for
Actually,
us to
because it
know.
didn't have the piece of really digging down and actually providing teachers with lesson plans in certain areas of deficiency.
Okay,
And this particular district wanted that piece,
yeah, yeah,
and STAR really didn't provide it to the extent that they wanted.
yeah. It's interesting.
NWEA, it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And I used that years ago, so
Mhm.
I'm not up to date with it, but
Mhm.
STAR I do know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and districts are just different in how they approach things. So when, in our SRBI program, or even leading up to SRBI, we're able to pretty readily send someone in, Pat Castle, to do a really good diagnostic screening with kids and find out why, and then we have one-to-one intervention for them, which is nice. They're not in small group intervention, but, so that's, I guess, because we have some of those resources, we
Yeah.
haven't always been looking for that level, but that's a good piece for us to know about as we go forward. It's gonna take us some time. We have, you know, a lot of people, the right people on board to look at it, and we'll see what we come up with. I wanted to share that a parent survey went out today on career and technical education. This was generated by the department themselves as a part of the 5-year evaluation of the CCC. So that went out today, and we're in the process of looking at the data that we're getting back.
What grades are that? Is that?
7 through 12, so Dodd and the high school. We're also in the middle of planning for March PD. Robin and I were just talking about that today. It's on March 14th this year. Kevin and I are coming off of a number of meetings with our math, ELA, social studies, and science department leaders and division leaders to pull in teachers from grades 5 through 12 to really talk about the progression of the standards and get them all together for those vertical discussions, which doesn't happen all that often, and is really in response to questions that we've gotten saying, can we do that? We'd really like to do that. So that's in the works. January 26th, we have planned and are working on plans for a day of chorus. After the pandemic, all of our music, programming numbers really got decimated because kids either couldn't practice at home because it was too noisy, or didn't really like band where you really couldn't blow into an instrument anymore because the kibosh was put on that due to the restrictions. So we have a lot of new music teachers, and they're working so hard at really trying to bring music back in a big way for students. So this day of chorus combines the elementary students in 6th grade. The 7th and 8th graders will do a performance, and then they'll see all of the really exceptional high school performances, like what used to be called the VIPs. I forget what their name is now. And so it really generates a lot of buzz around signing up for those music programs at the middle school and at the high school. At the same time, Kevin is in talks with our 6th grade teachers, because if all the 6th graders are at day of chorus, it provides us an opportunity to do some collaboration and professional development with 6th grade teachers from across the district. So that's another thing we have in the hopper. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that we have been talking a lot about STEM education and what we can bring to our elementary school students. We have some nice offerings at the middle school. We've got our robotics club, and we've got manufacturing track at the high school, and computer-aided design and drafting. But we would like to, and we think that if kids at a younger age had more exposure to that side of things, that we might be able to just give them give them exposure and maybe turn them on to some STEM careers that they might not have thought about. So today we got to meet with someone from True Robotics. He is actually a graduate of WPI in Worcester, and he had a really interesting program. They had been up at MIT and studied districts and went and just did interviews with people like Kevin and myself and Jeff, and learned a lot about what was missing from STEM education. And a lot of that is that anyone who's got that technical background or that engineering background doesn't go into teaching, they go into those other fields. And so it makes it a little tricky to have an elementary teacher be teaching some of that, that coding or that robotics technology. So it was a great meeting. We heard a lot about and got to play with some of the robots that they had right here in this room, and saw their curriculum, and gives us some really good information about where we might like to take that if we were able to. So just some fun things I thought.
Where would you fit it into the day?
Well, they
Schedule.
had a 4th and 5th grade program that we thought looked very interesting. And we were not sure, but we talked about having a 5th special. So aside from PE and art and music, and we would maybe put it in there in the library. So that would be an option, but of course there's staffing implications to that. You would need probably at least 2 staff members to be able to go across all of the elementary schools and provide that in 4th and 5th grade. So we really kind of thinking through what that could look like.
Heard of this program called, I think it's called something like Girls in Coding or something.
There's a number of programs like that.
So
Yeah.
there's a student who contacted me at the end of last semester about trying to get some involvement from Cheshire schools.
Okay.
I think it's high school though.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
don't think it's elementary school.
Well, if you come across her information and forward it to me, I'd be happy to explore it a little bit more. I think it's something necessary. I think where there's an opportunity for us to beef things up is definitely at the elementary school,
Yeah.
to make sure we're.
Well, I was
exposing
wondering
kids
how
to that
much
earlier.
coding we have available for the higher high school kids.
Oh, for higher high school kids, we actually have a coding class. We have some computer science. I was pointing to Kevin to talk about some of the coding that's offered in a minimal way through our library media
Yeah,
classes.
Our library media program, at least 1 through 5, I don't think they do it in K, bases kind of probably 4 or 5 lessons around an hour of coding each year. So mostly in December, because it's when they do kind of hour code movement. So that's a good introduction, but it's relatively minimal. We do have other opportunities, but they're not opportunities that all students would get to be part of. So
If we
there's an
could,
AGP academy that's based on coding, but that would be only if you're in that program.
if we could offer more coding sections, would there be time in the day to do it?
Well, that's a little bit what we're talking about,
Yeah.
whether we would embed that in a STEM special or some other trade-off on there, I'm not
We
sure.
need a teacher who is well versed in it, understands it, and can really spark kids' interest. And we want to make sure that it wasn't just, an add-on to our current science program. There's so much in the curriculum that's already packed. We're looking at how can we do this, and how can it not just be a club at the end of the day or a pullout for a group of kids, but how can we make sure that all of our kids get this kind of experience?
And this requires certification to teach, right?
Well, they would need some type of certification. There is not currently that I am aware of any kind of coding, but something in science, engineering,
Okay.
math.
So I couldn't bring in a professional like myself.
You would need to be a certified
Yeah.
teacher.
In all seriousness, last school year, I think, I forgot who asked, it might have been Faith. Have we talked to the Coder School at all?
I was just gonna say
Oh.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
I-
My
they're very
grandson
popular
goes
this-
there, yeah.
Very popular in the summer, I know a lot of younger kids did
Yeah.
camps there over the summer,
yeah.
because that's when they had time.
I have not personally talked with them. I know a couple of the districts who have worked with them. It's something else that we're exploring, but they are also, I know, popular with after-school
Yeah.
and summer programs.
I was thinking, yeah.
And they're really trying to embed this,
Yeah.
that experience for every kid. But those are good suggestions for sure, things we can continue to look at.
I mean, they might have staff. I don't necessarily know a lot of the staff are younger, college-age kids, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure they're not certified, but there
Right.
may be someone there that,
And I think the only place that doesn't have a shortage area, no, even history, social studies is a shortage area. We were looking today, every area is a shortage.
Hmm.
So. And that's all I have.
that's it. Okay, Robin, you're on K-12 special ed.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up.
Sorry, I probably could have turned that off for you. I wasn't sure where you.
Well, it's my 30th wedding anniversary today, so
Oh,
my husband
Anniversary.
wanted to take me to the Cheshire basketball game. And I told him, I said, well, honey, I kind of have to go to this meeting. So we grabbed something to eat before I dropped him off there, and then I came here. So that is why I was a little late.
Well, thanks for coming today, Robin.
Yeah.
This is, Robin's going to give you all the executive summary of the 5-year evaluation of the special education program here in Cheshire. They went through, they did surveys and actually had a consultant come in and look at, in particular, look at paraeducators and how we were using them. So we heard from, this was in October when Robin and her department made the presentation to the CCC. The next people that you'll hear from on the 5-year eval will be career and technical education and science. They're up in March, so try to get them in before the end of the year.
This two-step
Two-step
verification
verification.
drives me crazy.
And we always have our phones on.
Okay. Oops.
You do a slideshow on the top. right?
Yeah. Why is my finger not working? I'm hitting this thing.
Cheshire Curriculum Council. So many.
Presenter view, right?
I just forgot.
That's not right. Here we
It's
go.
funny, I started with
Okay.
acronyms when I first joined the board years ago, I stopped. There's too many.
I was actually sitting there thinking too, I was like, what, CCC, Curriculum Council Committee? I was kind of questioning myself. All right, so we, our team or our committee that we pulled together to take a look at our department and our programs included myself, Kim Desert, the principal, Darcy oversees the pre-K EIC program, Marie Broadway, who's our secondary supervisor, Christina Sherwood, who is our elementary supervisor, Deb Botero at the high school, who is our department head, and Andrea Cofrancesco at, trying to pull someone from every area. And so we kind of looked at, well, where did we come from? What have we been working on? What have we been doing for the past several years? You know, of course, we align our goals with the social emotional learning and the complex thinking. So that's our overarching district goals. And within special education, we focus, and many of our initiatives are aligned right along with that. We've been working really hard on our implementation of CT SETS, which is a new data platform. That was quite an undertaking. It was quite a change for people, but it's gotten it's really improved. Our staff really took it on with a very good positive attitude, and really, we really worked all very well together to get that up and running efficiently. You know, we've been impacted with some of the mandates that have come out about transition. We've had the exit of special education, aging out exit. Age has changed on us. At first it was 21, okay, through the age of 21. And then when the child turns 22, they're exited on their birthday. This past year, starting in July, that changed. We now exit in June. So if a child turns 22 during the school year, they now exit in June of their 22nd year. So it just keeps growing and growing. And so that's had an impact on us. You know, we've really, I think that we have a lot of assistive technology that's out there available for our students with the one-to-one Chromebooks. That really helped because it gave all students access to different types of programs that help them with their reading, their writing, and math as well. So students are, I think that, giving students access has been one of our focuses. And in the past couple of years, we've really focused on executive function skills. What we were seeing was that students, while we were doing such a really good job at helping our students gain those basic skills and gain the skills they needed in the core areas, one area that we were not seeing growth was really in executive function. Students still required a lot of support from either adults or from additional accommodations to help them with those executive function skills. And it wasn't just the organization piece, but the being able to regulate their emotions and regulate their behaviors, their ability to focus, their ability to time management. There's several different areas, and we did a lot of professional development in that area to help our staff to understand what executive functioning skills are and how we can address them through our IEPs. And now we're really talking a lot about how do we infuse them into the general ed setting more so. So
That was what came to my mind, is we have a lot of students in just regular gen ed.
it really came into my view personally when I moved from the elementary supervisor to the director of special ed, and I now was looking at those students in the high school that I knew as elementary students, and I'm like, wow, he's taking CP courses, wow, he's doing this in academics. But the difficulty that they were having was all around the executive function piece, and it was like, wow, we are not really addressing that piece as well as we
And they're
should
coming
be.
to college and they, they're floundering not because of academics,
Yes.
not because of what they can do it, but because they don't know how to manage their time. They don't know how to.
Yeah, and I have my theories as to why that is, but they're just theories in my mind. But I know that our students are very scheduled. And so you have these extraneous persons or schedules that are put on them. They're not necessarily having to employ those skills.
They're not taking control of their own.
Yeah. So we discussed and looked at our different resources that we have out there that help to support us in looking at our programming. And this is just a list of some of the things. Our special ed supervisors review every IEP before it's finalized. So they're able to go in and kind of see, they're able to pick up on some trends, and they're also able to look at it and say, yeah, we really are starting to increase our goals and objectives in the area of executive function and social emotional learning. There are some different resources that are out there, such as websites such as LRP and CASE, which really helps us with our legal requirements and advice. We attend CONCASE monthly meetings. That is CONCASE's meetings that are held with the directors in our area, and we talk about the different issues and things that are coming up. We work closely with BRS, DDS, and BESB. Those are the state agencies, and using some various consultants. Sonia Kunkel was the person who did our paraeducator looking at our paraeducators and how we're utilizing them, and are we utilizing them the best way that we could be, and gave us some advice on that and kind of helped guide us through that. Henry Davidson has been doing some work up at Darcy, and of course, our attorneys are always there to give us advice. So these are just some of those different areas. So, we looked at, okay, well, what are presently, what are we working on, and what are we seeing? So we are still, we still look at that executive function goal writing. Are we seeing that really align with the assessments that we are doing that pull out those deficits in executive function, and then how are our goals being written so that we can actually target that area and measure growth? So we're we talk a lot about progress monitoring tools. We're looking at, all the pieces of that IEP, making sure that we're really developing a comprehensive, targeted plan for our students that will help them to make the progress they need to make and to help to close those gaps. We've talked about, we were fortunate enough to be able to purchase many specialized materials and assessments through the grants that came through from COVID. And I think I updated every tool we use for evaluations, making sure we had the latest and that all of the schools were equal in what they had access to as far as specialized evaluating materials.
That was a good use of funds, because previously, you would have people driving over in the middle of the day to your school to see if your test kit was available and you had
Yeah.
to spare it so that they could drive it over to the other side of town to use it and get it back to you by Wednesday in case you had to test more. So that was really,
It really made a lot of sense because, you know, we were very fortunate to have all these monies to be able to use, but to be able to go out and hire additional staff or to bring somebody in to do something, the people were not available. There just wasn't, you couldn't utilize the money for that, and then how were you gonna sustain it once the money was gone? So we really looked for ways that we could use the money that would have an impact, a long-lasting impact. You know, so we bought more Wilson kits, we bought more Spire kits. Those are specialized reading programs that our team uses. And then we brought in some professional development too. Had some speakers come in, we had job coaches, people that come in and train our paras on how to be a job coach for our students. Oops, that went too fast. Okay. So, all right, wait a second here. That is not where I'm supposed to be. It's still going forward. How do I go
Down at the
backwards?
bottom left, there's
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. You can see I don't do this that often. There we go. All right, so when we started to talk, sat down and we started to talk a little bit about, you know, what is it that we value? What is it that we think is really important for our students with special needs? And so we really talked about how our general ed teachers, we all know when we see the research that the general ed teachers are the holder of the curriculum. And so we want our students to have access to that. Students with disabilities can still benefit from the general ed teaching and the instruction that takes place, and we want them to be able to have that so we're not creating wider gaps for them. Special ed students are general education students first. I mean, that's where they all start. There are things that get in the way, such as, I refer to them as barriers, that get in the way of them accessing. So we have to look at how we break down those barriers and how we provide them that access. We know there are lots of benefits and research behind heterogeneous groupings. Just on a personal note, I used to teach a self-contained classroom for kids with learning disabilities, and if you try to have a conversation about a book or a novel with students that have their verbal skills are very much impacted, it's not much of a, it's not a very engrossing, rigorous conversation. So by having heterogeneous grouping, the ideas and the thoughts of all those students that had maybe more vocabulary or a more expansive understanding really sparked the learning of those students that were struggling with it. We talked a lot about universal supports that are available to all students. Are we really, with our specialized instruction, are we really closing the gap or are we enlarging it? And special ed students get much of their instruction from the least trained personnel, and that is our paraprofessionals. And so we wanted to really look at that piece too. Let's see, these are some other areas that had impact on our thinking. Pulling from some different articles and some different pieces of information that we were able to gather. So special education is not a place, it's a service. So we wanted to really think about how can we present a service, and it doesn't necessarily have to be out of the classroom. The landmark study that we looked at, we found that spending 80% or more in the general education classes improved reading scores by 24 points and math by 18. And that, so allowing those students to remain in classrooms, providing them with the supplements of the supports that they need in order to access and knock down those barriers, they were able to score much higher The President's Commission on Excellence in Education in 2002, children placed in special education or general education is children first. That is the first and foremost thing that we look at. And then when you actually look at the wording of IDEA, which is the special education law, it says that they were talking about special ed and pull-out. And it should only be, children should only be removed from general education environment when the nature and the severity of the disability is such that the education in the regular classroom with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So we wanted to really think about that. Supplementary aids and services, what is that? What does that entail? What do we have out there that we're utilizing right now as supplementary aids and services? And then our Connecticut Annual Performance came through on our 2021 data, and in Indicator 5, we saw that was the indicator that looks at our time with non-disabled peers. The target is 67%, and we were at 64.97%. And we're like, wait a minute, we always talk about how much we're so inclusive and how we have this army of parents to support our students so they can be in the general ed classroom. Why are we not meeting that target? So that was something that really got us thinking. And recently we purchased a book by Ann Benninghoff on specially designed instruction, and this quote kind of resonated with all of us. You can't teach a child to swim by taking them out of the pool. And so we constantly refer back to that.
And
So
that really resonated with people on the CCC when Robin shared that with folks. And this was largely a general education committee. I mean, there are representatives on there, but it was powerful.
Yeah, I went back, because I said to myself, looking at that percentage, where does that fall? Because I used to say to myself, well, we have a lot of specialized programs in district. We have our autism program, we have our behavioral program, the Bridges program. Those kids aren't spending a lot of time out there in the general ed classroom, but it's not those students, it's our resource room students that are, we jump where I think we have to look at how we're recommending the number of hours for students to be pulled out of the classroom, and are we really targeting the deficit area, or are we kind of skimming it and pulling in other things as well? So we've had some professional development and talk about what is specialized targeted instruction, and looking at assessments and pulling that information from the assessments so that we're targeting the right things. And I'll give you an example for like if a student who's not reading on grade level. When you look at the assessments and you're finding that the student has, their word of text scores are low, their phonemic awareness are low, and their comprehension may be low on grade level material. And then we start to talk about it, tease it out a little bit. What we're finding is that the student definitely has a decoding issue. Let's target the decoding. But what we sometimes find is that our teachers are not only targeting the decoding, but they're targeting the comprehension. And when you push back and you ask, well, why are you targeting comprehension? Their comprehension was within the average. And they'll say, well, because he can't read on grade level. No, he can't read on grade level because he can't decode it. But if you look at the listening comprehension and you look at the student's oral comprehension, it's intact. So we're trying to get staff to really look at it through that lens of, okay, then I need to target the phonemic awareness, I need to target the decoding, and the comprehension will come because it's intact, it's there. So in order to, what came out of all of this, looking at the research, looking at what we're doing in district, thinking about, the different resources that we have, we came up with our goals. And so in the first area, we want the IEP development. So we want to really look at increasing general education participation in PPTs. Because what I want to get away from is, or we want to get away from, I should say, is when you step to that PPT and you decide a student needs special education services, the next question isn't turning to the special ed teacher and saying, and how much time will you be taking him or her? Because it really should be about what are the actual barriers that are preventing the student from being successful in the classroom. Is there any supplementary aids or assistive technology that we can put in place to support some of those barriers and keep that student in the classroom. We want to really focus on targeted specially designed instruction. You know, what is it? What does it look like? And helping our staff determine, you know, and how much time do I need to sit face-to-face with that student to address that. We want to increase time with non-disabled peers. We don't want to create more gaps for students because they're not in the classroom. And we want to be very prescriptive, individualized service hours in the least restrictive setting. Sometimes you get caught into this cookie cutter recommendation. Oh, I'll give them 2.5 hours in the classroom and 2.5 hours out of the classroom because it's an hour long for that class. And when you really break it down to how much of that is actually targeted specialized instruction, you may find that it's really only 20 minutes. It's not even 30 minutes. Because oftentimes I hear students need a break. They don't have the stamina to do 30 minutes. Oh, they come in, I give them instruction, I give them a break. All right, well, that break's not specialized instruction. So maybe you only need 20 minutes, and maybe the break is when he's returning back to the classroom, walking down the hallway. These are the things we want to start talking about and teasing out. And we want to look at non-personnel reliant accommodations, and that, part of that came out of our study with looking at paraprofessionals, and part of that was because there are no bodies out there. We have, right as of today, 15 openings for paras. And Christine Sherwood, I feel for her as the elementary supervisor. She hires one and the next day someone else leaves. It's a revolving door and it's been nonstop for
That's
her.
for paraprofessionals?
Yeah, yeah. You know, in the past, our paraprofessionals we would get often would be either 2 or 4 year college moms that needed those hours, or they were people who were previously teachers but decided they didn't want that level of responsibility but still wanted to work with children and be in schools. That's not what we're getting today in our pools. Our pools are people who don't have a lot of experience and don't have a clear understanding of what they're getting into. So, you know, we are required to provide them with 18 hours of professional development. And we've been looking at our onboarding and how can we prepare them a little better. That came out of that study as well as our onboarding. Technology, you know, I think that area we really want to be able to enhance our students' use of technology in the general ed classroom, and for teachers that are general ed teachers be more aware and more understanding of the workings of that assistive technology that students have. Most of our students use Google Read and Write. You know, that's a tough one. But when you have a student that has an AAC device, something they need to use for communication, that's where we want to, and it works very well in the younger grades, that we want to be able to help our general ed teachers feel comfortable with using the use of that for our nonverbal students. For instructional strategies, our goals are focused on targeting those barriers and those lagging skills with a laser-like focus on the specific, specially designed instruction. That was Marlene's favorite line. My laser-like focus.
Laser-like focus.
That was, now my new one is rigorous. But we want to increase their independence through the direct instruction of executive function skills. And assessment, we really want to dig deeper by conducting comprehensive evaluations. I think, you know, the days of getting by just doing the Woodcock-Johnson for achievement as part of your academic assessment within a comprehensive eval is not going to do it. We need to dig deeper. We need to look at what is the actual areas that the students have a difficulty in and help drive those goals and objectives a little more specifically. We need to identify specially designed instruction, and we need to communicate with parents, general education teachers, and paraeducators how the disability manifests and how it impacts the students to give a deeper understanding, and that's going to come out of those assessments. And now we have those tools, so. And then, now, how do you get there? The professional development, you know, looking at continuing with the executive functioning, providing that professional development for our paraeducators as they support our students, and also continuing to support students with mental health and emotional issues that are caused by trauma, and training training teachers to better understand our students' needs and the impact of their disability, and then really targeting those deficits. Whoops. Yep, that's it. So that's what we came up with based on that study, based on, what we were hearing from teachers, parents, and from the different resources that we were able to gather information from. Any questions?
Regarding the assessments that you all purchased through the COVID grants, I'm assuming that's part of the ESSER funds,
Mhm.
which are going to be gone
Yeah,
this year.
we spent them.
So I would hope, and I would anticipate that if you still need those on, so you do, there'll be a budget request this year to keep those going.
Yeah, so, buying a kit, like if we were gonna buy one assessment kit, I mean, that can run you from like $700 to $1,200, for it. So, every so often, companies come out with the latest and the greatest. So that will happen, but that we'll have to start replacing them in time. But there is a budget line in our department that is for assessment supplies.
Does the IDA help pay for any of that, or is that not applicable? I'm just curious.
Right now, it does not. Our IDA grant, the majority of the IDA grant is covering personnel.
Personnel, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of staff in there, and, each year it goes up a little more, but the pay and the salary of the staff goes
Doesn't
up.
keep
So
pace, yeah.
I don't have a lot of flexibility in there, but every now and then we're able to carve out something from there.
But I think, to Tony's question, you don't see the need for any additional kits moving into
No.
next year. You're solid with what you have
Yeah,
right
I
now.
mean, we expanded, we updated our cognitive, we expanded our achievement, in the area of achievement, we pulled in, we were traditionally, we're using a test called the Woodcock-Johnson, but we're now looking at the WIA, which gives us far more in-depth information. So, that's the Wechsler Achievement Test. And then there are some various phonemic awareness and some language testing that the speech pathologists were able to identify that were pulled in.
We're in good shape.
So I assume as part of budget workshops, you're going to give us another overview of special education again? No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And I hope, I think last year you might have covered this, but I hope you do talk a little about how you've been able to take advantage of, use the grants effectively from COVID to all offset, because I think board members will be reminded that some of the stuff was paid through that, which is going away, just to keep it fresh. I don't want to spend more money,
Thank
but
you.
it's just, it was very helpful, and I hope we keep funding this as needed. Thank you.
Yeah, you have questions?
Yeah, thanks for targeting the budget portion of that. So I can get into this really deep question that's just burning with me, which is your last point was the training to provide it to help all teachers understand these special needs students. It makes me wonder, is there anything being looked at as to how can be an advantage to just the general population of students to have the special education students in their classes as well? And I think especially with the reading and, or the reading comprehension. I mean, if students can explain to their peers, that's really powerful for them to
Right.
be able to.
Right. Yeah, there's a big social emotional piece to that, because some
And there's
students
the
who may not be fully, like a student who doesn't have an IEP, may not be very confident in their skills or really see themselves as a successful student. And so when they do see other students that struggle with things, and then they're able to kind of look at themselves, I think that's helpful.
Or they can begin to explain things.
We know
And
that
it
if you
helps
can,
them.
if you have to teach something,
Yeah.
then your understanding of that is even better. So I think
But I
that
think of that
happens.
on the big scale just because, also just to give all people,
Yeah.
this idea that, just because a student has,
Yeah.
a certain need that's different from
Mhm.
others.
You know, the majority of our,
They're still, they still belong in these classes.
Still
They still
kids.
belong in
Yeah.
these
Well,
general.
it develops
education.
empathy too in our general ed
Yes,
population.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Real understanding of all the differences that make up the world. And that's what we're getting our kids ready for eventually is,
And I think that's why, you know, when you look at our Best Buddy programs and how well they do, and I can't help but smile, but this fall, I went down to go watch the middle school students engage in a Best Buddies athletic soccer tournament. And so there were 4 or 5 different teams. We had a team from Dodd, our students with special needs, that included a couple students as from the general population that supported our students with special needs. And they played like a 5-on-5 game against some other surrounding districts that had students that were a combination of IEP students with some pretty intense needs. There was a student out there in a wheelchair who's, you know, has a lot of these students have cognitive deficits as well as physical. And it was, I'm telling you, it was the best day of like my 36-year career, watching these kids engage in this soccer tournament. And you know what really, I really enjoyed watching our students with special needs. They were loving it. The boy in the wheelchair was just, he was ready to jump out of that chair. He was so excited. But what really gave me the goosebump factor, was the students that had volunteered their time to do this and how they were taking the steps to help engage the students with special needs. So for instance, the student in the wheelchair, there was a ball shooting across the front of the goal. It was trickling, and one of the boys was pushing the wheelchair. A little tiny thing, he's pushing this good-sized boy in the wheelchair. And he's running like the dickens, trying to get the wheelchair to time it with the ball so it would ricochet off the wheelchair into the goal. And he just missed it, and it was so exciting, and the kid was jumping out of his chair practically. But like they would pass the ball, and it was just everything that they did to ensure that their teammates on that team had a fantastic experience. And I wrote, there were 3 boys that did not have IEPs. I wrote emails to their parents, and I just told them, you know, I just witnessed your son supporting his teammates, and I was just impressed at his performance and just at him giving his time and making and ensuring that these students had a great experience, and it just warmed me. And so that's what happens when you have students. They're not afraid, but you also have to think about the majority of our students are learning disabled, ADHD, maybe they might be emotional, some of them are emotionally disabled, but a majority of those students who make up a large piece of our IEP students are average to above average intelligence. So cognitively they belong there. It's just now we have to address the barriers.
I have a question, but go ahead, Ann, are you
No,
finished?
I'm finished.
Could I want to just answer that part of the conversation that Robbie and I
Yes.
were having today of our professional development for March is really, you know, something we've talked about here before. When Kevin talks about us providing coaching to teachers of students who have multilingual learners, those same strategies that they're using to teach multilingual learners are going to benefit your general education students around vocabulary, around understanding, around context, around the same strategies that are used in a general education class that we're embedding those executive function skills that we were talking about earlier. Those are going to benefit everyone, including special education students. When we did that Board of Education elementary showcase, and it was such a wildly different way to learn something when you were kind of thrown into it and you had to work together to answer the questions, and you had to make your thinking visible on the vertical erasable surfaces, is a lot more engaging for the student who has ADHD or who has executive function issues than sitting in rows in a classroom and listening to a teacher lecture and then asking one question at a time where they'll know Ann's answer to the question, but they have no idea what my thinking was and if I'm on track. So this whole shift of moving from the traditional to the, let's just say, more visible thinking, making sure that everyone has those strategies, that universal design is really where we're headed on, okay, where are our teachers currently and where do they best need our support? And just like our students, our teachers are skilled in different areas, and so we need to provide professional development that meets them where they are so that they can push and grow through. So I just wanted to
And
kind of
notice that
share
some of
those things.
Task designs draw out, because they're not as traditional, and it's not always the first person to raise their hand, are going to draw out some really good thinking and really show the assets of the students who are in the room. They're coming with strong ideas, good thoughts, and they may have something that's a challenge for them, but they are highly intelligent, and some of our task design draws that out naturally. So it's,
I don't know that students always see how impressive it can be for us, teachers. When we see kindness and respect being sort of at the center of the learning. Because I see it in a college class when a weaker student gives a presentation, but a really spot-on student is the one who asks the question, gives at the end of the presentation, or gives the feedback about the part that they didn't know before, that they learned from this presentation. That is so impressive, so much more impressive than just seeing their wonderful presentation that they're able to do. Those are the students that I give the glowing recommendations for whatever they want to do, whatever jobs they want to do on campus or beyond. It's because
And I do think our students in Cheshire haven't had the exposure or having all the opportunities to work with students with IEPs of various cognitive abilities and levels. It really has enhanced their ability to be able to, like you said, support and empathy and understanding and friendships. We have a student with Down syndrome at the high school who will be transitioning into our transition programs, and she has one of her best friends is one of the best buddies students, and they do things on the weekends together, and I've seen them interact in the hallways, and it's just, I'm hoping that that young student decides to be a special ed teacher someday because she's got it, but I do think that our students are fortunate that we do have these programs in district and they're able to interact.
we just need more people, even if they don't become special ed teachers, we just need more people who know how to interact with other people in society.
So Robin, first of all, I want to thank you for our lengthy discussion last week and bringing me up to speed. But I do have a question. You mentioned Sonia Kunkel,
Yeah,
and she did a review of your paraprofessional staff.
yeah.
What did she come out with? What were her findings?
So, she did observations, she did interviews, she looked at our IEPs, and what came out of that was that we really felt that we needed to focus more on preparing our paraeducators to be more prepared and giving them some time before we throw them into the classroom. I think in many cases we were not necessarily, because what's coming through our hiring process are people with not a lot of experience, we need to take the time to give them more training before we just throw them into the classroom. Because oftentimes they are not paired up in a classroom with a special ed teacher. They're in the general ed classroom now trying to support, helping to support the
That's my
students.
fear, because sometimes,
Yeah.
general ed teachers feel if a parent comes in, it'll
Yeah.
work out, but not
Yeah.
necessarily if
Not
the
all the time.
parent isn't doing it, or if
Yeah,
the parent is doing the work for the child.
Yeah.
And, you know.
yeah,
It only works out if you put the work in.
yeah, yeah, and I think, you know,
That the
some,
paraprofessional knows what
Yeah.
Right.
their duties are, and I'm not blaming them, because I know that's who we're hiring.
yeah, they, you know, she interviewed general ed and special ed and administrators. And I think, you know, what came out of it as well was that there wasn't necessarily a clear process or understanding for when to make the recommendation that a paraeducator was needed and what that paraeducator was going to do. And so we did introduce this fall a rubric that we're using, having our staff refer to, that kind of helps guide those decision-making. Instead of it being kind of, I go back to that cookie cutter recommendation that, you know, everybody gets a paraeducator in science and social studies because they have difficulty with reading. And, you know, we need to look at it in terms of, well, why do they need a paraeducator? What is that person doing for them? And if it's reading the material for them, I can have a Chromebook and I can have the Chromebook and they can access text-to-speech and speech-to-text. I don't need a person to sit there and read to them.
Do you have minimum qualifications?
They are very minimal. They're, you know, 18, they have to be, have a high school diploma. And that's basically it, you know?
Have the qualifications become more minimal because we're not getting, like we used to get initially, those 2
No.
and 4 year mom?
They were always that. I think since I've been here since 2009, the qualifications haven't changed. I think it's just the pool of people that are applying has changed.
And also in some of our schools where we receive Title I services, there are minimum requirements that are higher, that require a bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
Did you mention 18 hours of training is
Yeah, the state
required?
mandates 18 hours of training for paras,
So is it-
professional development.
Is it just a matter of targeting those 18 hours?
That is part of it, helping with the paras, and that was
Because
one.
18 hours seems like a lot.
Yeah,
It is
A lot of
it is a lot.
training.
And, you know, the way we've approached that, that was mandated to start July 1st of last year. And September, we had to hit the ground running with our plan, how we were gonna provide for that professional development. It was a struggle, it was a real struggle. But this year, we went into it and, you know, knowing that that's already in place. And we are looking at, we felt that the importance around providing time for the special ed teachers to actually interact and work with their paras. And so what we did is we identified different topics, and we have days that are already established as early release days. And those are days that paras stay for the full day, and they engage in these professional development that we provided for them. And some of that is collaboration time with their special ed teacher, because, you know, oftentimes it's, the teacher needs to show them or train them on utilizing some of the materials that the students are using, or maybe it's a strategy that they're trying to apply, or maybe it's a behavior plan that the student has that's new, that's been revised. So we felt that that was really important.
So the training can be also targeted towards specific students that they have right now?
It needs, they described in the mandate that the instruction should be around, professional development should be around instruction and improving instruction.
Yeah.
Because they recognize that a lot of our paraeducators are providing instruction for our students. And so that's where we, you know, we are looking at different types of strategies, whether it's a reading strategy, a writing, you know, providing some of the instruction that our general ed teachers and our special ed teachers have gotten through their professional development, so that when the para goes into the classroom and sees some of these strategies, they're familiar with them and they understand what the purpose of them are. So some of that is what we do during those times.
And I know this is a discussion about the special education program, but we also have paraeducators who are not working with
Right.
special education students. So an example of us providing them with training is that every kindergarten teacher and every kindergarten paraeducator went through the same training in August. We had some training on purposeful play, and they were right there for that. And Kim Desert, as well as Kevin, have done an incredible job of not only planning for the specific needs of that group of paraeducators, but I think it's really nice having them train side by side with the teachers. It brings up a lot of, it builds a team, it offers a lot of collaboration, and they can learn different perspectives there as well. So it's been very beneficial.
Yeah, and so out of that paraeducator study, it also came out about, how we need to develop plans on how to support those paraeducators and understanding what their role is and what they should be doing. I mean, the last thing you want is, the paraeducator with a pencil in the hand, writing down and doing, and the students sitting there. So we really want to help them to develop those strategies on how to support the student in doing the work and the behavioral supports. I mean, and the other thing too that came out of it was, looking at other services and supplementary aids that doesn't require a body. Because we knew that we're not filling these positions, but the student need is still there. So we have to look at it through a different lens.
Are the paraeducators our lowest on the pay scale?
I don't know.
I don't think that's entirely true.
Do you mean like in district, or do you mean like across the state?
No, I was just wondering where they fall in that.
Well, they're probably hourly employees.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not
Yeah,
teacher
yeah,
pay. They do have contracts and unions and negotiations,
yeah.
but
Yep.
I
You
would
can
say
see
their hourly is
their contract is on our human resource page. And you can look at like the scales and that is.
And what's the percentage of paras that are in special ed versus not?
I couldn't tell you what the percentage is,
I mean,
but
is it close to 50/50? or
No.
not?
No,
No.
majority is.
no, if you think about our, every kindergarten has a paraeducator, and then in first grade, so very small percentage.
Okay.
Does every first grade have a pair?
No,
They
first
share?
grade, I didn't finish that sentence. In first grade, we have what's called, well, we do, it's a grade 1 paraeducator, and that's to support reading. It's push-in, so those folks are doing intervention, but before it even gets to the point of intervention.
But it's roughly 1 for every 2 to 3 classrooms, depending on the building. No, okay, it's a 1-to-1.
Yeah. Any other questions for Robin?
This is great, thank you for
They're in the
this
fourth
detail.
quarter at the basketball games.
We're sorry.
Texted me, we're in the fourth quarter. And I don't think he wants to walk up.
It must have been Tony. At the last meeting when he wasn't here, we were out at 7:35. I'm just
Well,
saying.
I'm a talker.
No, no,
And
no.
that
You did a
also.
great
No,
job.
but
Thank you.
Rob, I say it every year, I know a lot of work, a lot of teamwork goes into this, and I appreciate you. Oh, you think this is lengthy, I know there's much more, and I appreciate you getting us the information.
Yeah,
It's
thank
always
you.
very helpful, especially at budget time,
Yeah, you're welcome.
We need 18 hours of training to understand all of this.
at least, yes.
It's, that's why I reached out, because I was like, we got new board members, there's always lots of questions, I just want to make sure that, I can answer some of them beforehand to kind of get people ready and everything.
No, this is helpful, as Tony said, before going into the budget
Yeah.
process too.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Right.
thank you very much.
Because
So glad
IDEA
you're
doesn't
here.
pay
Thank
for
you.
anything.
I obviously
I'm
know.
a special ed person.
Yeah, you know.
Well, our access reimbursement cost is 100%, doesn't pay for it.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Right
wait,
next-
well, wait
Right
till,
next door to us.
wait till I
Unfunded
share with you our
mandates that they give
out-of-district
us.
placements, and then you'll know why.
Yeah,
Okay, is there anything else?
there is none.
Otherwise, we're adjourned at 8:10.
Okay,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
great.